Before America of indigenous cultures and societies, North America, a land of vast plains, towering mountains, and fertile valleys. Long before Europeans, diverse indigenous cultures thrived here. They built complex societies. They were skilled farmers, hunters, and artisans. Their connection to the land ran deep. In the southwest, the ancestral Puebloans crafted elaborate cliff dwellings. These structures, like those at Mesa Verde, stand as testaments to their architectural prowess. The Mississippian culture, centered around the Mississippi River Valley, built impressive mounds. Cahokia, their largest city, was a bustling hub of trade and culture. The eastern woodlands were home to the Iroquois Confederacy. This powerful alliance of 6 nations skillfully navigated diplomacy and warfare. Each group possessed unique traditions, beliefs, and languages. A new world, European arrival and colonization. The 15th century witnessed a surge in European exploration. Driven by a thirst for new trade routes and riches, explorers set sail across the Atlantic. In 1492, Christopher Columbus, funded by Spain, reached the Americas. His arrival marked a turning point in history. European powers, eager to exploit the resources of this new world, established colonies. Spain, with its conquistadors, focused on South and Central America. England, France, and the Netherlands established settlements along the eastern coast of North America. The arrival of Europeans brought devastating consequences for indigenous populations. Diseases like smallpox ravaged entire communities. Colonists displaced indigenous tribes from their ancestral homes. The 13 colonies, established along the Atlantic seaboard, became centers of trade, agriculture, and European settlement. This expansion came at a heavy cost. Declaring independence, the American Revolution. As the 18th century progressed, tensions grew between Great Britain and its American colonies. The colonists, accustomed to a degree of self-governance, chafed under increasingly restrictive British policies. Taxes levied by the British Crown fueled resentment. In 1773, the Boston Tea Party ignited a firestorm. The British responded with force, further inflaming tensions. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence penned by Thomas Jefferson. The declaration proclaimed the colony's right to self-government. The American Revolution had begun. Led by George Washington, the Continental Army faced a formidable foe in the British military. The colonists, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with determination. They were aided by foreign powers, notably France. Key battles, such as the victory at Saratoga and the decisive siege of Yorktown, turned the tide in favor of the Americans. Forging a nation, the Constitution, and early republic. With the Treaty of Paris in 1783, Great Britain formally recognized the independence of the United States. The fledgling nation faced the daunting task of forging its own destiny. The Articles of Confederation adopted in 1777 proved inadequate to govern the newly formed nation. In 1787, delegates from the states convened in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. Their goal was to create a more effective government. After months of debate and compromise, they drafted the United States Constitution. This document, ratified by the states in 1788, established a system of government with checks and balances among 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. The Constitution, with its Bill of Rights guaranteeing fundamental liberties, became the cornerstone of American democracy. George Washington was unanimously elected as the first president. The United States, under the Constitution, embarked on a path toward becoming a more perfect union. Westward expansion, manifest destiny, and its consequences. The 19th century witnessed a dramatic expansion of the United States. Driven by a belief in manifest destiny, Americans pushed westward. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubled the size of the nation. Explorers like Meriwether Lewis and William Clark ventured into the uncharted wilderness. Their expedition from 1804 to 1806 mapped the Missouri River, crossed the Rocky Mountains, and reached the Pacific Ocean. Pioneers, lured by the promise of land and opportunity, loaded up their wagons and headed west. They followed trails like the Oregon Trail and the Santa Fe Trail, facing hardship and danger along the way. The expansion westward came at a cost. Native American tribes were displaced from their ancestral lands. Conflicts arose as settlers encroached on their territories. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 forced thousands of Native Americans to relocate west of the Mississippi River. This tragic event, known as the Trail of Tears, stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of westward expansion. A nation divided, the Civil War, and Reconstruction. By the mid-19th century, the issue of slavery had created a deep divide within the United States. The southern states, heavily reliant on enslaved labor for their agricultural economy, fiercely defended the institution of slavery. The northern states, increasingly industrialized and morally opposed to slavery, pushed for its abolition. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 proved to be a turning point. Southern states, fearing that their way of life was under threat, seceded from the Union. They formed the Confederate States of America. The Civil War began in April 1861 when Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War was a brutal conflict, pitting brother against brother. Key battles, such as the Battle of Gettysburg and the Siege of Vicksburg, resulted in staggering casualties. Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, declaring that all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory were to be freed. The Civil War ended in 1865 with the surrender of the Confederacy. Slavery was abolished. The nation faced the daunting task of Reconstruction. Industrial rise, innovation, immigration, and world power. The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed the rise of the United States as an industrial powerhouse. Innovations in technology and industry transformed the nation. The expansion of railroads connected the vast country. The invention of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell revolutionized communication. The rise of corporations such as Standard Oil and Carnegie Steel led to both economic growth and concerns over monopolies. The influx of immigrants from Europe and Asia provided a labor force for the burgeoning industries. Cities grew rapidly as people flocked to urban centers in search of work. The United States began to assert itself as a global power. The Spanish-American War in 1898 marked a turning point. The US victory over Spain led to the acquisition of territories in the Caribbean and the Pacific. The United States emerged from the 19th century as an industrial giant. Depression and war, global conflicts, and domestic crisis. The 20th century brought new challenges and triumphs. The Roaring Twenties, a decade of economic prosperity and cultural dynamism, came to a crashing halt with the stock market crash of 1929. The Great Depression, the worst economic downturn in modern history, gripped the nation. Millions lost their jobs. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs provided relief, recovery, and reform. They helped to alleviate the suffering and reshape the role of government in American life. The world plunged into war again in 1939. The United States, initially neutral, was drawn into World War II after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. The war effort mobilized the nation's industrial might and united Americans in a common cause. American soldiers fought on battlefields across Europe and the Pacific. The war ended in 1945 with the defeat of the Axis powers. The United States emerged from the war as a global superpower. The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, dominated international relations for decades. Towards equality, the civil rights movement, and modern America. The post-war era also witnessed a resurgence of the struggle for civil rights in the United States. African Americans, despite the end of slavery, continued to face discrimination and segregation. The civil rights movement, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X, challenged these injustices. Through peaceful protests, boycotts, and legal challenges, the movement made significant strides. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 ensured the right to vote for all citizens. The struggle for equality extended to other groups as well. The women's rights movement, the LGBTQ rights movement, and the disability rights movement all fought for greater inclusion and justice. The latter half of the 20th century and the early 21st century saw rapid technological advancements. The digital revolution transformed communication, information access, and daily life. The United States has grappled with ongoing challenges, yet the American spirit of innovation, resilience, and the pursuit of a more perfect union endures.